All right, let's talk about digital security. Today, we're going to tear down some of the old ways of thinking and explore a brand new blueprint, one that's less about building higher walls and more about designing a much, much smarter fortress.
So let's just kick things off with a question that I think bothers a lot of us. We pour billions and billions of dollars into cyber defenses, right? We have brilliant people working around the clock to protect our networks, and yet we still see headlines about massive data breaches almost every single week. So what gives? It kind of suggests our whole approach might be a little bit flawed.
You see, for decades, the playbook has been pretty simple. Build a digital fortress with walls so high and thick that nobody can get in. But here's the hard truth. In the world we live in now, breaches aren't just a possibility anymore. They're an inevitability. It's not a matter of if an attacker gets in, it's a matter of when.
Okay, so if we just accept that fact, that someone eventually is getting past the gate, well, that changes the entire game. The most important question is no longer how do we keep them out. The real question, the one that truly matters, is once they're inside, what damage can they actually do? And that single shift in perspective is the foundation for this entire new model.
All right, let's break this new blueprint down piece by piece. We'll start with layer 1, which we're calling the fortress walls. And honestly, this is the stuff you already know, the cybersecurity stack that most companies already have.
Yeah, this is all about your basic infrastructure and endpoint protection. To stick with our analogy, think of these as the guards on the wall, the heavy gates, and the big old moat surrounding the fortress. It's your first and essential line of defense.
We're talking about all the usual suspects here, right? Your firewalls, the protection software on everyone's laptops, your security operations center, or SOC. That's the team watching the monitors for trouble. Even modern ideas like zero trust networking fit in here. These are the workhorses of cybersecurity.
Now, I want to be absolutely crystal clear on this point. This new blueprint does not get rid of any of this. Layer 1 is still totally required. It's not being replaced. Think of it as the foundation we're building on top of, not something we're tearing down.
Okay, now for layer 2, we call this the personal safe. And this is where things start to get really, really interesting. This is where we completely rethink how to protect what's most important, the data itself.
So, the core concept is user-controlled data encryption. Here's the analogy. Instead of putting all the kingdom's gold into one giant central vault, which is a massive, tempting target, what if we gave every single person inside the fortress walls their own personal, uncrackable safe, a safe that only they have the key to?
So how does that actually work? Well, a few key things make it possible. First, the users themselves own their encryption keys, not some big company. Second, data isn't all piled up in one giant, vulnerable database. Third, access is controlled using zero-knowledge proofs, a fancy way of saying the system can let you in without ever needing to see your secrets. And maybe most importantly, this design makes it impossible for some administrator to silently access your data behind the scenes. And this right here, this explains what people mean when they say a technology like Jasmy's personal data locker cannot be hacked. It's not about the walls. It means that even if an attacker completely breaches Layer 1, even if they're running wild inside the fortress, they still can't get into those individual personal safes. The data stays secure even when the system around it is compromised.
All right, let's move up to the next layer and see how this all fits together. Layer 3 is what we call the containment plan. So if Layer 1 is the outer walls and Layer 2 is the personal safes, then Layer 3 is the actual architectural blueprint of the fortress itself, the layout of all the rooms and hallways.
The whole point of this layer is architectural risk reduction. Think about how they build a modern warship or a submarine. It's designed with sections sealed off by heavy bulkheads and automatic blast doors. If one section gets hit and starts flooding, wham, the doors seal and the damage is contained. The rest of the ship is fine. We're just applying that same exact principle to software. The security effect here is profound. It means a compromise in one little area can't escalate. An attacker can't move laterally from one room to the next because those blast doors are sealed. This just crushes the value of any successful breach and collapses its potential blast radius. A small fire in one room stays a small fire. It doesn't get to burn down the whole building. So again, you can see that shift in mindset. This layer isn't even trying to prevent the attack from happening in the first place. It flat out assumes the attack will happen, and it's designed from the ground up to severely limit what that attacker can accomplish once they're inside. Now, to really understand how powerful this model is, it is just as important to understand what it doesn't do as it is to know what it does do. This is a really critical point.
So let's lay it out. What this model is, it's a system for drastically reducing breach impact. It's a way to eliminate the risk of those catastrophic mass data compromises. It's a method for collapsing the blast radius of an attack. Now, what it isn't, it's not a silver bullet. It's not a replacement for your security team. It's not going to stop someone from clicking on a phishing email, and it won't stop malware from executing on a computer. It's a completely different kind of defense, playing on a different field.
And this quote just sums it all up beautifully. It's the perfect way to think about it. Each layer has a very specific job. Jasmine handles the data, Nodecraft handles the architecture, and all your existing tools, they're still handling the infrastructure. They work together as a team.
So what's the new bottom line for anyone who's actually in charge of security? Well, it's about making a fundamental shift in how we think, moving away from the impossible goal of total threat elimination and embracing the much more achievable and powerful goal of meaningful risk reduction. Let's just boil it down to the key takeaways. First, this is not a magic solution. But second, it absolutely reduces the impact of a breach in a meaningful way. Third, it is designed to structurally eliminate the risk of those headline-grabbing mass data compromises. And finally, no, it does not replace your security team. In fact, it makes them more effective by letting them focus on the right threats.
If you only take away one single phrase from our entire conversation today, let it be this one. We're not talking about just adding another alarm system to the wall. We are talking about fundamentally changing the structure of the building itself to make it inherently safer. It's structural risk reduction. And that really leaves us with one big final thought. Maybe the race to achieve better security isn't about an arms race to build higher and more complex walls. Maybe, just maybe, the future is all about architecture, containment, and designing smarter, more resilient buildings right from the very beginning.